Sarah walked slowly down the empty street, her thin jacket doing little to protect her from the bitter winter wind. Snow crunched under her worn sneakers as she made her way home from another disappointing job interview. At 19, she had been living alone in a tiny basement apartment for 6 months, ever since her foster family decided they no longer wanted her around. The streetlights flickered weakly in the growing darkness, casting long shadows across the deserted neighborhood. Sarah pulled her jacket tighter and quickened her pace, eager to get back to her small space where at least she could escape the cold. Her stomach growled loudly, reminding her that she had only eaten a small piece of bread that morning. Money was running out fast, and without a job, she wasn't sure how she would pay next month's rent. As she turned the corner onto her street, something caught her eye near the old abandoned warehouse. At first, she thought it was just a pile of rags or garbage, but then she saw movement. Sarah stopped walking and squinted through the falling snow. There, huddled against the brick wall of the building, was a large dog. The animal was barely moving, its dark fur covered with snow and ice. Sarah could see that it was a German Shepherd, but this one looked nothing like the strong, healthy dog she had seen in movies or on the street with their owners. This dog was thin, shaking violently, and appeared to be on the verge of death from the cold. Sarah stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. She had no money for food, no space in her tiny apartment, and certainly no experience caring for animals. But as she watched the dog struggle to lift its head, something inside her heart broke. She recognized the look in the animal's eyes. It was the same desperate loneliness and fear she had felt countless times in her own life. Without thinking, Sarah approached the dog slowly, speaking in a soft, gentle voice. The German Shepherd looked up at her with tired brown eyes that seemed to plead for help. Sarah knelt down in the snow, ignoring the cold seeping through her jeans, and carefully reached out her hand. The dog didn't move away, too weak to be afraid. Up close, Sarah could see just how bad the dog's condition really was. Its ribs were visible through its matted fur, and there were small cuts and scratches on its legs and face. The dog's breathing was shallow and labored, and Sarah realized that if she left it here, it would probably not survive the night. "Hey there. Beautiful," Sarah whispered, gently touching the dog's head. "You're just like me, aren't you? All alone with nowhere to go." The dog's tail gave the faintest wag, as if it understood that someone finally cared. Sarah looked around the empty street, then back at the dying animal. She knew she couldn't just walk away. Even though she had almost nothing herself, she couldn't let another living being suffer when she had the power to help. Making a decision that would change both their lives forever, Sarah carefully scooped the large dog into her arms. The German Shepherd was heavier than she expected, but Sarah managed to carry the weak animal the 3 blocks to her apartment building. By the time she reached her door, both she and the dog were covered in snow, and Sarah's arms ached from the weight. She fumbled with her keys, praying that her elderly landlord wouldn't hear her bringing a pet into the building where animals were strictly forbidden. Sarah managed to get the dog inside her small basement apartment without being seen. The space was barely big enough for one person, with just a mattress on the floor, a small electric heater, and a tiny kitchenette with a broken refrigerator. But it was warm and dry, which was more than either of them had outside. She gently placed the dog on an old blanket near the heater and watched as the animal's shivering slowly began to stop. For the first time in months, Sarah felt a sense of purpose. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was saving a life. As she looked down at the German Shepherd's grateful eyes, Sarah made a silent promise that they would figure out how to survive together, no matter what it took. Sarah spent the first hour just watching the German Shepherd breathe, afraid that any moment the dog might stop fighting for life. She had never taken care of an animal before, and she felt completely helpless as she tried to figure out what to do next. The dog's fur was still damp from the snow, and Sarah could see that it was extremely thin and weak. Using an old towel that she normally used for herself, Sarah gently began to dry the dog's coat. The German Shepherd didn't resist, seeming to understand that Sarah was trying to help. As she worked, Sarah talked softly to the animal, telling it about her own struggles and how she ended up living alone in this tiny apartment. "I don't even know if you're a boy or a girl," Sarah said with a small laugh, the first time she had laughed in weeks. After a careful examination, she discovered the dog was female. "Well, girl, I guess we're roommates now. I'm Sarah, and I think I'll call you Hope, because that's what you've given me." Hope lifted her head slightly at the sound of her new name, and Sarah felt a warm feeling spread through her chest. For the first time in months, she didn't feel completely alone in the world. The biggest challenge came when Sarah realized that Hope needed food and water immediately. Sarah looked through her tiny kitchen and found only half a loaf of stale bread and a can of soup that she had been saving for tomorrow's meal. She filled a small bowl with water and placed it near Hope, who drank gratefully but weakly. Sarah broke off pieces of bread and soaked them in warm water, making them soft enough for Hope to eat. The dog ate slowly but eagerly, and Sarah could see the gratitude in her eyes. As Hope ate, Sarah felt her own stomach growling with hunger. But seeing the dog's desperate need, she gave her all the bread without hesitation. That night, Sarah lay on her thin mattress with Hope curled up beside her, both of them sharing the only blanket Sarah owned. The small electric heater hummed quietly in the corner, providing just enough warmth to keep them both from freezing. Sarah had never shared her bed with anyone, human or animal, but having Hope next to her made the tiny apartment feel less empty and cold. During the night, Sarah woke up several times to check on Hope, worried that the dog might be getting worse. Each time she was relieved to feel Hope's steady breathing and to see that she was sleeping peacefully. Sarah gently stroked Hope's fur, amazed at how soft it was underneath all the dirt and matted tangles. "We're going to be okay," Sarah whispered into the darkness, though she wasn't sure if she was trying to convince Hope or herself. "I don't know how, but we're going to figure this out together." By morning, Hope seemed slightly stronger. She was able to lift her head higher and even managed to wag her tail a little when Sarah woke up. Sarah felt a surge of happiness at this small sign of improvement, but she also realized the enormous challenge that lay ahead of them. Sarah had exactly $12 to her name, no job, and now a sick dog to care for. She needed to find food for both of them, figure out how to get Hope to a veterinarian, and somehow keep their living situation secret from her landlord. The weight of responsibility felt overwhelming. But when Sarah looked into Hope's trusting brown eyes, she knew she would do whatever it took. She spent the morning searching through every corner of her apartment, looking for anything valuable she could sell. She found a small silver ring that had belonged to her mother, the only thing she had left from her family. Sarah held the ring for a long moment, remembering the few happy memories she had of her mother before she died when Sarah was 10. "I'm sorry, Mom," Sarah said quietly, slipping the ring into her pocket. "But I think you would understand. Hope needs me and I can't let her down." Sarah knew that selling the ring wouldn't solve their problems for long, but it would buy them a few more days of food and maybe enough money to take Hope to see a veterinarian. As she prepared to leave the apartment to find a place to sell the ring, Hope struggled to stand up as if she wanted to come with Sarah. "You need to rest." "Girl," Sarah said gently, helping Hope lie back down on the blanket. "I'll be back soon, I promise. And when I get back, we're going to start figuring out how to build a real life together." Hope seemed to understand and settled back down, watching Sarah with alert eyes as she prepared to leave. Sarah realized that in just one night, this dog had become the most important thing in her world, giving her a reason to fight for something more than just her own survival. Sarah walked through the cold morning streets with her mother's ring clutched tightly in her hand, her heart heavy with the decision she was about to make. She had spent 2 hours visiting different pawn shops and jewelry stores, trying to get the best price for the only valuable thing she owned. Most shop owners barely glanced at the small silver ring before offering her insultingly low amounts. Finally, at a small shop on the edge of town, an elderly man behind the counter looked at the ring more carefully. "This is good silver," he said kindly, noticing the desperate look in Sarah's eyes. "I can give you $45 for it." Sarah felt tears well up in her eyes as she handed over the ring, knowing she would never see it again. With the money in her pocket, Sarah's first stop was a grocery store where she bought canned dog food, a bag of dry food, and some basic supplies for Hope. She spent $20 on food for the dog, leaving her with $25 for human food and any emergency expenses. Sarah bought herself a loaf of bread, some peanut butter, and a few cans of soup, enough to last several days if she was careful. On her way home, Sarah noticed a small veterinary clinic she had never seen before. Through the window, she could see a young woman in scrubs organizing supplies. Sarah gathered her courage and walked inside, the bell above the door announcing her arrival. "Can I help you?" asked the woman, who introduced herself as Dr. Martinez. Sarah explained her situation honestly, describing how she had found Hope and the dog's current condition. She also admitted that she had very little money and was worried about affording proper medical care. Dr. Martinez listened carefully, her expression growing more concerned as Sarah described Hope's symptoms. "Bring her in tomorrow morning," she said finally. "I'll examine her and we can discuss payment options. Sometimes we work with people who are in difficult situations." Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. For the first time since finding Hope, she felt like there might be a real solution to their problems. She thanked Dr. Martinez repeatedly and promised to bring Hope in the next day. When Sarah returned to her apartment, she found Hope standing by the door, as if she had been waiting and worrying about Sarah's return. The dog's tail wagged weakly, and Sarah felt her heart swell with affection for this animal who had already become so important to her. "Look what I got for you, girl," Sarah said, opening the can of dog food. Hope ate more eagerly than she had the night before, and Sarah could see that the dog was already getting stronger. The warm apartment and regular food were helping Hope recover from her ordeal in the cold. That afternoon, Sarah spent time gently brushing Hope's fur with an old hairbrush, slowly working out the tangles and mats. As she worked, she discovered that underneath all the dirt and neglect, Hope was actually a beautiful dog with thick, glossy fur and intelligent, expressive eyes. "You're gorgeous," Sarah told Hope, who seemed to enjoy the attention and grooming. "I bet you had a family once who loved you. I wonder what happened to bring you to that alley." As if she understood the sadness in Sarah's voice, Hope moved closer and rested her head on Sarah's lap. The simple gesture of comfort and affection moved Sarah to tears. She had spent so many years feeling unwanted and alone, and now this dog was showing her more love and loyalty than most humans ever had. That evening, Sarah faced a new challenge when she heard heavy footsteps in the hallway outside her apartment. Her landlord, Mr. Peterson, was doing his monthly inspection of the building. Sarah's heart raced as she realized that if he discovered Hope, they would both be thrown out onto the street immediately. "Stay quiet, girl," Sarah whispered urgently to Hope, who seemed to sense the danger and remained perfectly still. Sarah quickly hid the dog food and water bowls, then sat on her mattress with Hope pressed close against her side, both of them holding their breath as the footsteps stopped outside their door. Mr. Peterson knocked loudly. "Monthly inspection, Sarah, open up." Sarah's hands shook as she opened the door, positioning herself to block his view of the interior of the apartment. Hope remained hidden behind the mattress, not making a sound. "Everything looks fine from here," Mr. Peterson said gruffly, glancing over Sarah's shoulder. "Rent is due in 2 weeks. Don't be late again." Sarah nodded and managed to close the door without him seeing Hope, but the close call left her shaking with fear. "We can't keep living like this," Sarah told Hope that night as they settled down to sleep. "If he finds you, we'll both be homeless. But I'm not giving up on us. Tomorrow we'll see the doctor, and then we'll figure out our next step." Hope seemed to understand the gravity of their situation, moving even closer to Sarah and resting her head on Sarah's shoulder. In the darkness of the small apartment, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She would have to find a way to make enough money to move them both to a place where they could live openly together, no matter what it took. The next morning, Sarah faced the challenge of getting Hope to the veterinary clinic without being seen by her neighbors or landlord. She waited until she was sure the hallway was empty, then carefully led Hope outside through the back entrance of the building. Hope was still weak but managed to walk slowly, leaning against Sarah for support. The walk to the clinic took much longer than expected because Hope needed to rest several times. Sarah could see that the dog was trying her best to keep up, but her strength was still very limited. Other people on the street stared at the unusual pair. A young woman in worn clothes carefully guiding a thin, injured German Shepherd through the snow. Dr. Martinez was waiting for them when they arrived at the clinic. She immediately got down on Hope's level, speaking gently to the dog while examining her condition. Sarah watched nervously as the veterinarian checked Hope's heartbeat, looked into her eyes, and felt along her ribs and legs. "She's severely malnourished and dehydrated," Dr. Martinez explained to Sarah. "I'd guess she's been on her own for at least a month, maybe longer. She also has some minor injuries on her paws and a small infection in her left ear. The good news is that with proper care she should make a full recovery." Sarah felt relief flood through her body, but then Dr. Martinez continued with the part Sarah had been dreading. The treatment will include antibiotics for the infection, special high-nutrition food, and some supplements to help her gain weight. Normally, this would cost around $200. Sarah's heart sank. She had hoped that the basic examination would be enough, but now she realized that Hope needed much more care than she could afford. She looked down at her hands, trying to figure out how to tell Dr. Martinez that she couldn't pay for the treatment. However, Dr. Martinez said, noticing Sarah's distress, "I have a proposal for you. I've been looking for help around the clinic. Someone to clean kennels, help with feeding, and assist with basic care tasks. If you're willing to work here for a few hours each day, I can provide Hope's treatment in exchange for your labor." Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. Not only would Hope get the medical care she needed, but Sarah would have a job that would help them both survive. "I'll do anything," Sarah said quickly. "I'm a hard worker and I learn fast. When can I start?" Dr. Martinez smiled at Sarah's enthusiasm. "You can start today. First, let's get Hope started on her treatment, and then I'll show you around the clinic." Sarah watched as the veterinarian gave Hope antibiotics and explained how to give her the special food and supplements. Sarah's first day working at the clinic was exhausting but rewarding. She cleaned kennels, helped feed the animals, and learned basic care techniques from Dr. Martinez. Hope stayed at the clinic during the day, resting in a comfortable kennel and getting used to being around other animals again. During her lunch break, Sarah sat with Hope and was amazed at how much better the dog already looked after just one day of proper medical care. Hope's eyes were brighter and she seemed more alert and interested in her surroundings. "You know," Dr. Martinez said, joining Sarah during her break, "Hope is lucky you found her when you did. Another day or two in that cold, and she probably wouldn't have survived." Sarah felt a chill run through her as she realized how close she had come to losing Hope before they even had a chance to know each other. Dr. Martinez also shared some insights about Hope's background. "Based on her behavior and the way she responds to commands, I think she was well trained at some point. She's probably around 3 years old and she's definitely been someone's pet before. I wonder what happened to separate her from her original family." Sarah felt sad thinking about Hope's past, but she was also grateful that circumstances had brought them together. "Whatever happened before doesn't matter now," Sarah told Hope, gently stroking her fur. "We're family now, and I'm never going to let anything bad happen to you again." Working at the clinic gave Sarah more than just a way to pay for Hope's medical care. It also gave her confidence and a sense of purpose that she had never experienced before. Dr. Martinez was patient and encouraging, teaching Sarah about animal care and praising her natural ability to connect with the animals. "You're a natural at this," Dr. Martinez told Sarah at the end of her first week. "Have you ever considered studying veterinary medicine?" Sarah had never thought about having a real career before, but working with the animals at the clinic made her realize that she had found something she was passionate about. That evening, as Sarah and Hope walked back to their tiny apartment, Sarah felt more hopeful about their future than she had in months. Hope was getting stronger every day. Sarah had steady work, and for the first time, she could imagine a life beyond just surviving from day to day. Hope seemed to sense Sarah's improved mood and walked with more energy than she had shown since Sarah found her. As they reached their building, Hope looked up at Sarah with an expression that seemed to say thank you for everything Sarah had done to save her life. "We're just getting started, girl," Sarah said, opening the door to their small apartment that no longer felt quite so cold and empty. "This is just the beginning of our story together." 3 weeks had passed since Sarah started working at the veterinary clinic, and the transformation in both Sarah and Hope was remarkable. Hope had gained weight and her coat was now shiny and healthy. More importantly, she had developed into a confident, loving companion who followed Sarah everywhere and seemed to understand every word she spoke. Sarah had also changed dramatically. Working with Dr. Martinez had given her skills and confidence she never knew she possessed. She had learned to give injections, assist with minor surgeries, and handle even the most frightened and aggressive animals with patience and skill. Dr. Martinez had started paying her a small salary in addition to covering Hope's medical expenses. The biggest challenge remained their living situation. Sarah was still terrified that Mr. Peterson would discover Hope and evict them both. She had become an expert at sneaking Hope in and out of the building, and Hope seemed to understand the need for silence when they were in the apartment. One afternoon, while Sarah was cleaning kennels at the clinic, Dr. Martinez approached her with an unexpected offer. "Sarah, I've been thinking about your living situation. I know you've been worried about your landlord finding Hope. I have a small apartment above the clinic that I've been using for storage. If you're interested, you and Hope could live there in exchange for being available for emergency calls at night." Sarah could hardly believe what she was hearing. Not only would they have a safe place to live where Hope was welcome, but she would also be able to learn even more about veterinary medicine by helping with emergency cases. "Are you serious?" Sarah asked, tears of gratitude forming in her eyes. "Completely serious," Dr. Martinez replied. "You're one of the most dedicated workers I've ever had, and I can see how much you care about the animals. Plus, Hope would be great company for the animals who have to stay overnight for observation." That weekend, Sarah and Hope moved into the small apartment above the clinic. It wasn't much bigger than their previous place, but it felt like a palace compared to the cold basement they had been living in. The apartment had a real kitchen, a comfortable bed, and best of all, large windows that let in natural light. Hope explored every corner of their new home, her tail wagging constantly as she investigated all the new smells and sounds. Sarah watched her with a smile, remembering the weak, dying dog she had found in the snow just a month ago. It seemed impossible that this happy, healthy animal was the same creature. Living above the clinic allowed Sarah to spend even more time learning about veterinary medicine. She began staying late to help Dr. Martinez with complicated cases, and she started reading veterinary textbooks during her free time. Dr. Martinez encouraged Sarah's interest and began teaching her more advanced procedures. "You have real talent for this work," Dr. Martinez told Sarah one evening as they finished treating a cat that had been hit by a car. "I think you should seriously consider going back to school to become a veterinary technician, or even a veterinarian yourself." Sarah had never finished high school after aging out of the foster care system, but Dr. Martinez helped her research programs for adults who wanted to complete their education. Sarah discovered that she could take online courses to get her high school diploma while continuing to work at the clinic. Hope played an important role in Sarah's education as well. She became a therapy dog for the other animals at the clinic, helping to calm nervous pets and providing comfort to animals recovering from surgery. Dr. Martinez was amazed at Hope's natural ability to sense which animals needed comfort and how she seemed to know exactly how to help them feel better. "Hope is special," Dr. Martinez observed one day as they watched Hope gently lying next to a small puppy who was recovering from surgery. "I've never seen a dog with such strong instincts for caring for other animals. She's almost like a natural veterinary assistant herself." Sarah felt proud watching Hope help other animals, knowing that her decision to save Hope had led to Hope saving other lives as well. It seemed like their rescue of each other had created a ripple effect of healing and hope that extended far beyond just the two of them. As autumn approached, Sarah received her first paycheck that was large enough to start saving money. For the first time in her life, she wasn't living paycheck to paycheck, wondering where her next meal would come from. She opened a savings account and began setting aside money for her future education. Hope had also attracted the attention of other people in the community. Word spread about the amazing German Shepherd who helped other animals heal, and people began specifically requesting that Hope be present when they brought their pets to the clinic for difficult procedures. One particularly meaningful moment came when an elderly man brought his sick cat to the clinic. The cat was very ill and frightened, hissing and scratching at anyone who tried to help. Hope seemed to sense the cat's fear and gently approached, lying down near the examination table and somehow communicating a sense of calm to the terrified animal. "I've never seen anything like it," the man said, tears in his eyes as he watched his cat relax for the first time in days. "It's like your dog has a gift for healing." Sarah felt a warm glow of pride, knowing that Hope's gift for healing had saved not just other animals, but Sarah's own life as well. That night, as Sarah and Hope settled into their comfortable bed in their safe, warm apartment, Sarah reflected on how dramatically their lives had changed. "We did it, girl," she whispered to Hope, who was curled up beside her. "We saved each other, and now we're saving others too. I think this is what happiness feels like." 6 months after finding Hope, Sarah's life had settled into a comfortable routine. She was halfway through her online high school courses, had become Dr. Martinez's most trusted assistant, and Hope had become something of a local celebrity for her work as a therapy dog. Everything seemed perfect until the day a familiar face walked into the clinic. Sarah was organizing supplies in the back room when she heard Dr. Martinez talking to someone in the front office. The voice sounded familiar, but Sarah couldn't place it until she walked into the waiting room and saw a middle-aged woman with graying hair holding a small terrier. "Hope," the woman exclaimed, and Sarah watched in shock as Hope's entire body went rigid, then began shaking. The woman rushed toward Hope with tears in her eyes. "Oh my God, Hope. I've been looking for you everywhere." Sarah felt her world begin to crumble as the woman knelt down, and Hope, after a moment of hesitation, began wagging her tail and allowing herself to be petted. It was clear that this woman knew Hope, and from Hope's reaction, they had a history together. "I'm Margaret Thompson," the woman said, looking up at Sarah with confusion. "This is my dog, Hope. She disappeared 7 months ago when my house was broken into. The thieves left the back gate open and she ran away. I've been searching for her ever since." Dr. Martinez looked between Sarah and Margaret, clearly sensing the emotional tension in the room. Sarah felt like she couldn't breathe as she realized what this meant. The dog who had become her entire world, her best friend, her reason for living, might not actually be hers at all. Margaret pulled out her phone and showed Sarah and Dr. Martinez dozens of photos of Hope from puppyhood to recent pictures. There was no doubt that this was the same dog. Margaret also had Hope's registration papers, veterinary records, and even a microchip scanner that confirmed Hope's identity. "I don't understand," Margaret said, looking at Sarah with a mixture of gratitude and confusion. "How did you end up with my dog? And why does she look so healthy and happy?" Sarah struggled to find words as she explained how she had found Hope nearly frozen to death in an alley, how she had nursed her back to health despite having almost nothing herself, and how Hope had become not just her companion but her entire family. Margaret listened to Sarah's story with growing amazement and emotion. "You saved her life," she said finally, tears streaming down her face. "When Hope disappeared, I thought I would never see her again. I can't believe someone so young with so little gave up everything to help my dog." The next few hours were the most emotionally difficult of Sarah's life. Margaret was clearly Hope's original owner and had every legal right to take her home. But it was also clear that Hope had bonded deeply with Sarah and was confused and distressed by the sudden appearance of her former owner. Dr. Martinez suggested that they all sit down and discuss the situation calmly. Margaret shared that she was a retired teacher who lived alone and had gotten Hope as a puppy 3 years earlier. She had been devastated when Hope disappeared and had spent thousands of dollars on search efforts and reward posters. "Hope was my whole world," Margaret explained. "After my husband died 5 years ago, she became my only family. But I can see that she's become your whole world too, and I can see how much you both love each other." Sarah found herself in an impossible situation. She loved Hope more than anything in the world, but she also understood Margaret's pain and loss. Hope had been Margaret's companion first, and Margaret had clearly loved and cared for her before the break-in that led to Hope's disappearance. As they talked, Hope moved back and forth between Sarah and Margaret, seeming confused and upset by the tension in the room. It was clear that she remembered Margaret and still felt affection for her, but it was also obvious that her strongest bond was now with Sarah. Margaret made an observation that surprised everyone. "You know, I've never seen Hope so confident and calm around strangers before. She was always a bit nervous and shy, even with me. But look at her now, she's like a completely different dog. More mature, more confident. What you've done for her goes beyond just saving her life." Dr. Martinez nodded in agreement. "Sarah has trained Hope to be a therapy dog. She helps other animals heal and provides comfort during medical procedures. Hope has probably helped save dozens of animals' lives through her work here." Margaret looked thoughtful for a long moment, watching Hope interact with the other animals in the clinic. "I had no idea Hope had these abilities. She was always gentle, but I never saw her behave like this with other animals." As the afternoon wore on, it became clear that this situation couldn't be resolved quickly or easily. Margaret had the legal right to take Hope home, but she could also see the profound bond that had developed between Sarah and Hope. More importantly, she could see that Hope had flourished under Sarah's care in ways that might not have been possible in Margaret's quieter, more sheltered environment. "I need some time to think about this," Margaret said finally. "This isn't just about what I want or what you want, Sarah. It's about what's best for Hope, and honestly, I'm not sure I know the answer to that question right now." Margaret left the clinic that evening without taking Hope. promising to return the next day to continue their conversation. Sarah spent that night holding Hope close, terrified that it might be their last night together, and wondering how she would survive if she lost the only family she had ever really known. Margaret returned to the clinic the next morning, but this time she wasn't alone. She brought with her a small suitcase and a thoughtful expression that Sarah couldn't read. Hope greeted Margaret warmly but immediately returned to Sarah's side, as if sensing that something important was about to happen. "I've been thinking all night about our situation," Margaret began, settling into a chair in Dr. Martinez's office. "And I've realized that this isn't really about who has the legal right to Hope. It's about what's best for her, and what's best for all of us." Sarah held her breath, preparing herself for the worst. She had spent the entire night imagining life without Hope and feeling like her heart was being torn in half. But Margaret's next words were completely unexpected. "Sarah, I've lived alone for 5 years since my husband died, and Hope was my only companion. But watching her yesterday, seeing how she's grown and changed under your care made me realize something important. Hope isn't just happier and healthier. She's found her true purpose in life, helping other animals heal." Margaret paused, reaching over to pet Hope gently. "More than that, I realize that you two have saved each other in ways that go far beyond just survival. You've both become the best versions of yourselves because you found each other." Dr. Martinez leaned forward, clearly curious about where Margaret was leading with this conversation. Sarah remained silent, afraid to hope for what she thought Margaret might be suggesting. "So I have a proposition," Margaret continued. "I've been a teacher for 30 years. And I've always believed that the best thing you can do for someone you love is help them grow and thrive. Sarah, you saved Hope's life and gave her a purpose she never would have found with me. And Hope saved your life and gave you a direction you never would have found without her." Margaret opened her suitcase and pulled out all of Hope's registration papers, veterinary records, and official documents. "I'm signing over legal ownership of Hope to you, Sarah. She's your dog now, officially and forever." Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. Tears began streaming down her face as the full meaning of Margaret's words sank in. Hope seemed to sense the importance of the moment and moved closer to Sarah, resting her head on Sarah's lap. "But," Margaret continued with a smile, "I have one condition. I've decided to move here to town and I'd like to volunteer at the clinic. I want to be part of Hope's life and part of your life too, if you'll have me. I think we could all benefit from being a family together." Dr. Martinez broke into a huge smile. "Margaret, that would be wonderful. We could always use experienced volunteers, especially someone with teaching experience who could help train our younger staff members." Sarah found her voice at last. "Margaret, I don't know what to say. This is more than I ever could have hoped for. Hope loves you, and I can see why. Of course, we want you to be part of our family." Margaret reached over and took Sarah's hand. "You gave me back my dog, but more than that, you gave her a life filled with purpose and meaning. The least I can do is help support both of you as you continue to grow and achieve your dreams." Over the following weeks, Margaret settled into her new life in town. She rented a small apartment near the clinic and began volunteering 3 days a week, using her teaching skills to help train new veterinary assistants and educate pet owners about animal care. The three of them, Sarah, Hope, and Margaret, became an unlikely but perfect family. Margaret became a mentor to Sarah, helping her with her studies and encouraging her dreams of becoming a veterinarian. Sarah taught Margaret about Hope's therapy work and helped her understand how much Hope had grown and changed. Hope thrived with both of her favorite people in her daily life. She continued her work as a therapy dog at the clinic, but now she also spent time with Margaret, helping her adjust to her new life in town and providing companionship during the evenings. 6 months later, Sarah received her high school diploma and was accepted into a veterinary technology program at the local community college. Margaret helped her apply for scholarships and financial aid, and Dr. Martinez arranged for Sarah to continue working part-time at the clinic while attending school. During Sarah's graduation ceremony, she looked out into the small audience and saw Margaret cheering for her, with Hope sitting proudly by her side, wearing a special therapy dog vest. For a young woman who had spent most of her life feeling unwanted and alone, the sight of her chosen family celebrating her achievements felt like the most beautiful thing in the world. "You know," Dr. Martinez said to Sarah after the ceremony, "when you first brought Hope into my clinic, I thought I was just helping you save a dog's life. I had no idea I was witnessing the beginning of something so much bigger." Sarah looked down at Hope, who was receiving attention and treats from all the other graduates and their families. I thought I was just saving her life too, Sarah replied. But really, we were saving each other. And then we ended up saving Margaret's life too, and now we're all helping save other animals' lives. It's like one act of kindness created this whole chain reaction of love and healing. Margaret joined them, wrapping her arms around both Sarah and Hope. That's what real love does, she said softly. It multiplies and spreads and creates more love wherever it goes. You two taught me that sometimes the best way to love someone is to help them become who they're meant to be, even if that means sharing them with others. As the sun set on Sarah's graduation day, the three of them walked home together, a young woman who had learned that she was capable of incredible love and sacrifice, an older woman who had discovered that letting go could lead to something even more beautiful than holding on, and a German shepherd who had gone from dying alone in an alley to becoming a beacon of healing and hope for countless other animals. Their story had begun with a moment of desperate kindness in a snowy alley, but it had grown into something much larger, a testament to the power of love to transform lives and create families in the most unexpected ways.